Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for October 21, 2025. I'll call us to order and ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, you have in front of you the draft agenda. I don't believe we have anything else for the draft agenda. Anything else for the draft agenda? If not, I'll move that we adopt the draft agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us forward then to the consent agenda, which in the consent agenda, we have the October 21, 2025 claims vouchers totaling $1,251,376.40. I'll move the adoption of the consent agenda, including those claims vouchers. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wittes. So moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward on the agenda to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. Tonight, we have the October 7, 2025 regular meeting minutes. I'll move the adoption of those meeting minutes. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward then the agenda to our public hearings, and we have 3 of them. The first one will be for 2026 budget. The second is for the 2026 EMS levy and general fire levy, and the third is for the 2026 benefit charge. So for the public hearing, I'll open each and then close each, and we'll go through each one. And we'll get started with item 6A, which is the public hearing on the 2026 budget. I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody that would like to address the board. Let's start first in the room and then go to our Zoom platform. Anybody who'd like to address the board regarding the 2026 budget? Any requests to address the board on the 2026 budget? If not, let me go to Ms. Blankenship and our Zoom platform and see if there's anybody online that would like to address the board regarding the 2026 budget.
There is not.
No, very good. Thank you. All right, then I will close the public hearing on the 2026 budget. That's 6A, and that'll move us forward to 6B, which is the public hearing on the 2026 EMS levy and general fire levy. I will open the public hearing on the 2026 EMS levy and general fire levy and ask if there's anybody here in the room, then we'll go Zoom platform. Anybody in the room that would like to address the board about the 2026 EMS levy and general fire levy? Not seeing any request. Let me go to Ms. Blankenship and check our Zoom platform. Is there anybody that would like to address the board regarding that issue on our Zoom platform?
There's not.
Ms. Blankenship, thank you. I will go ahead then and close the 2026 public hearing on the, the public hearing on the 2026 EMS levy and general fire levy, and that was 6B. That'll move us forward to 6C, which is the public hearing on the 2026 benefit charge. I'll open the public hearing on the 2026 benefit charge. We'll start first in the room. Is there anybody that would like to address the board regarding the 2026 benefit charge? If not, I'll ask Ms. Blankenship to check our Zoom platform for us to see if anybody would like to address the board regarding the 2026 benefit charge.
There is no one.
Ms. Blankenship, thank you. And with that, then I will close the 2026 benefit charge public hearing. That was 6C. That moves us forward then in the agenda to item number 7, which is public comment. We'll start first in the room and then go to the Zoom platform. Is there anybody that would like to address the board in public comment here in the room? If not, let me turn over to Ms. Blankenship and ask anybody on Zoom that would like to address the board.
There is not.
And I'll come back one last time to the room. Anybody in the room that would like to address the board? And not seeing any requests to address the board in public comment. Thank you. That'll move us forward on the agenda then to item number 8, which is the fire chief's report. Good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny, board liaison staff, and the guests that are here tonight. Just a couple things. If we pull up the slide deck real quick. I think we talked about it at the last meeting. We had a CERT class in Malt Lake Terrace. And Shawnee and her team, I guess I can't say this enough. They do phenomenal work with our partners with the CERT group within the state. They had 18 folks graduate. It was a pretty diverse group, and several from within the RFA. We had some from outside the RFA, but it was a great group. And I know Shauna is going to talk about a resolution that we have, or a ILA we have before you, and if she's got any things to add, she can add during that time. Again, a lot of enthusiasm, and we're thankful that the city of Malt Lake Terrace PD was willing to open up their classroom and allow a venue for that class. The other thing I have is Chief Isotelo has sent me an email with his intent to actually retire April 1st of next year. I think we've had some dialogue about that over whether it was in subcommittee meetings or with the board. And that as we talk about successor planning and with Jason giving official notice and Jason's going to burn some of his accrued time and be here not full weeks off and on between now and his official date of separation. And so we're at a spot where, as I look forward to retiring here shortly after the first of the year, we kind of need to plan for successor planning. And I think we had a little bit of conversation about promoting an assistant chief that allows for us to have that person kind of get their legs underneath them as Jason's transitioning out, but not gone, and get ready to go. So as I go and Chief Maxwell takes the helm, we don't have two brand new ACs at the same time. And so I'm happy to say that Chief Chalfant will be who we are going to move up to the assistant chief, which will ultimately be replacing Jason's spot. We'll make that action happen on the 1st of November. And talking to CFO Bothwell, there's no budget movements needed for that. We're able to do this within the current 2025 budget, and I want to make sure I'm correct when I say that and look back at them. And I guess in the conversation, as we have some of us that are have been here a while, retiring out, and folks coming in, I think we owe it to the organization to have as seamless a transition as we can, and a little bit of space where the folks that are coming in to take leadership roles in this organization, specifically executive leadership roles, are set up the best for success. And so I wanted to let the board know we're doing that. That will that will open up a DC's position. We have an active list. So there'll be another promotion along with John in the DC ranks. And then that will open up BC. I mean, that opens up a cascade of promotions that probably won't be done the 1st of November. There's a couple of interviews that we need to have prior to that. And we will work with Chair Kenny and Vice Chair Lawrence to hopefully do a swearing in ceremony on the 5th of November. Would be in a perfect world. If not, we can do it later. But we'll work with the leadership of the board to make that happen. But I wanted to let you know we're moving that way, and John has he has accepted, and even we gave him the opportunity to not do it tonight, and he's all in. And I will say, what you guys may not know is Sean, John, and I were all hired at the same time. We're part of the same class. And so I'm happy to say that the three of us have actually been partnered through our whole careers here. And again, it's going on 31 years for all three of us. So, so that's all I have for the chief's report tonight. And just so you guys know, we did work this. Sean and I talked a lot about this, and Chief Maxwell, this is the direction he wanted to go for his future administration within the organization. So if any questions, other than that, I'm completing my chief's report for tonight.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chief. And Chief Asatelo, thank you for your years of service. I know we'll have a note for later opportunities to congratulate you, but thank you for your years of service to South County Fire. And Chief Chalfant, thank you for being willing to step up to the leadership position and take the promotion. So thank you both. Are there questions from the board for the chief on the chief's report? Any
I just have my
Chief-
comments.
Chief Shaw, I'm sorry, Commissioner Chan.
Commissioner Chair. Yeah, I really thank you. I think this is the smoothest, well-planned succession plans and everything else. So I know previously, a lot of time it just happened, right? We have to be really situation change and we have to do it. So I'm really happy that this kind of nice moves transition. I think the public will be welcome this kind of a smooth transition.
Any other questions from the board members on the chief's report? If not, thank you, Chief. All right, that moves us forward to item number 9, which is the union report. And I think we have, is that Vice President Matt Armstrong with us this evening? Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, liaisons, staff. Thanks for allowing me to, thanks for keeping us on the agenda at these meetings. I don't have anything for the board tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, but as usual, I'm still honored to serve not only Local 1828, but the citizens of South County Fire and the Board of Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? That was an easy report. Very good. All right, thank you. All right, that moves us forward then to item number 10, which is unfinished business, starting with 10A, which is going to be our 2026 budget deliberations and a staff presentation update on the 10-year forecast. So this will be with our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Bothwell. Good evening, Mr. Bothwell.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Board. Okay, so tonight I have a brief presentation to unveil the 10-year financial forecast with the roadmap implemented and the guiding principles applied. So this differs a little bit from the forecast that you're accustomed to because it takes into account the planning efforts that we completed earlier this year. So I want to start with just a little bit of background. So the long-term forecast is a prediction about our financial future that's based on economist forecast data. So we start with our current data and our current budget, and then we use economist estimates to forecast what our financial future looks like going forward. And in this case, it's for 10 years. And the purpose of the forecast is to provide insight into the long-term financial sustainability of our organization. Prior to 2022, this work was done, but it was less formal. We didn't have a specific policy that spoke to it. In 2022, we implemented a policy that required a 6-year financial forecast and required annual updates. And the policy also recommended that we publish the results of the forecast with the annual budget. So we've been doing that since the 2023 budget. In 2025, we updated that policy to have a 10-year forecast instead of a 6-year forecast. And that change was made in response to or in anticipation of being rated by a credit rating agency and their preference for a 10-year forecast. So tonight, what we're talking about is the consideration of incorporating roadmap and guiding principles into the forecast. And you'll see why this is something we want to look at. It makes a pretty dramatic difference in the outlook, particularly as we get further out. So just for background, I just want to tell you there's 2 forecasts. The first one I'm going to refer to tonight is the base forecast. That's what's in your budget book and has been in there since 2023. So it's basically just the way we've been doing it. And then when I refer to the updated forecast, that's the forecast that takes the organizational roadmap and funding guiding principles into account. And in your packet materials, you have the detailed forecast. And what I've done here on the side is you can just see the green, the things that are shaded green. Those are the things that are new. So we started, and the things that aren't shaded, that is the original forecast. So that's the base forecast. And then the items in green are just the new ones that were added in the updated forecast. So the base forecast assumes basically the status quo. So it assumes that the revenue mix will continue without any modifications, that revenue enhancements will not occur. So we don't assume any lead lifts or new revenues. We do assume renewals for any of our revenues that are expiring, but they don't come with any lid lifts. It assumes current levels of service will continue without any modification, that expenditures will only grow by inflation, and that's the economist's estimates for inflation. The base forecast resulted in a dire financial outlook. So if you had a chance to look at it in the budget book, there's a little snip in the corner there of 2035, which is the last year that's in the forecast in the budget book. And it shows a current year deficit of over $12 million. And basically, there's no general fund cash or investments because we've spent them down in deficits, which is we could never actually get there. So the forecast in this form isn't super useful. The updated forecast includes the funding guiding principles that we worked on as part of the roadmap, and we actually had them before the roadmap, but they were updated with the roadmap. Those are in here. We also made an adjustment for GEMT collections, and we have those reduced by 20% in 2027, and that's sort of a conversation that's been ongoing with the board, particularly about the stability of that funding. And then the organizational roadmap is implemented, and so there are about 60 new positions that were in the roadmap over the next 6 years. Those are included in the forecast. And then healthcare expenditures increase at 8%. So you'll see there's a new line item in there for healthcare. And the reason for that is just that 8% annually is looking less and less discretionary as our experience changes with our self-insurance plan. So just a continuation here, details of the guiding principles that are included in the forecast. We have the levies are increased annually by the rate of assessed value inflation. So basically property value inflation. It's assumed at 4% in the forecast. So it's a straight line 4% for all 10 years. That is pretty consistent with what we've experienced. Just for example, last year we had a 2.5% increase. This year we had 6%, so we're averaging 4% just in the last couple of years. But over the long run, 4% is slightly below what we've actually experienced. It also has the benefit charges maintained at a rate equivalent to 20 to 40 cents equivalent per thousand of assessed value. And then I've got bolded with a star next to it that voters must approve levy lid lists every 5 to 6 years to maintain a continuous supply of levy capacity. So this is something we talked about with the funding guiding principles. The guiding principles themselves don't limit us to the 1% that's allowable under state law and is sort of automatically granted. And so we need to keep a continuous supply of levy capacity to make these guiding principles work. And so I wanted to highlight that again for you. And on the side there's just a graphic, and this is also in your materials, but it just shows what the timeline is. So you can see it just kind of gives you an idea how to visualize that, how frequently we would be doing an EMS levy lid lift, then a fire lift, and then we have a benefit charge renewal that's not on there, but that would fall into towards the end. And so it just has to be, we have to be on sort of a cycle to be going out to voters and asking them to lift our levies, the EMS levy and the fire levy. So the updated forecast results are all operating expenditures and routine reserves are fully funded for the next 10 years. So a striking contrast to what's in the base forecast. The general fund cash and investments target is achieved after, and I made a note that it was after the catch-up strategy. So 2 weeks ago, I told you that with this current budget, we're not expecting to hit the general fund reserve target, but we have a strategy. So that strategy works with the funding guiding principles, but you'll see in the first couple of years of the forecast that we're not achieving the fund balance target. But that doesn't impact how we intend to use the catch-up strategy or how that's been proposed. And then the levy and benefit charge rates are maintained within a locally competitive overall range of $1.40 to $1.60 per thousand of AV. And so if you remember the graphic that we've showed you of where we currently stack up, in that graphic, where we're obviously on the lower cost side of that, of our comparable agencies in Snohomish County, and this would keep us in that same range. And that's what I have for you.
Questions? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Lawrence, go ahead.
Yes.
Question.
CFO Bothwell. Who are the economists that are making this forecast?
So we use the King County Office of Economic Analysis and Forecast. We rely on their forecast. We were using one that was coming out of Western Washington University too, but we stopped doing that because it just didn't seem as relevant.
How is King County doing with their budget?
It's tough.
Yeah, they didn't listen to their economist, I guess.
Other questions from the board members? Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess there's no one from the public come to listen to the hearing. So I wanted to let the public know that we have a budget posted in our website, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think they can still come in and give us input. I mean, that's, I guess, the public trusting us. I know that when city draw the budget, there's a lot of people in there, but not us. Couple of things I really want to address. This is great. I know when I first started, we don't have any, we look at 1 year, then we get into 3 years, and then 5 years, now 10 year. I think it's critical, especially in our service. We have to have enough kind of long-term planning because to build a fire stations and other things. So I would like to see you, I understand that 3% and inflations and all that stuff. I think I would like to incorporate it. I know that King County, Snohomish County have all the projections of populations, right? So I think that is critical because we are serving people. Not only the population, I know every single city know that the aging of the population, right? We know one city is basically have, more senior citizen and that will require more service and that type of thing. So I think we should be, in the future, we can incorporate that and really make some, not just kind of the more bold projection that because the population, we may need more calls or that type of thing so that we can prepare ourselves on that. I think that's more, make this not just a formula, not just AI can do that. I like to use and look at that and incorporate in there. One more thing that I'm really happy to see is that I know on the one you just extended 5 more years. So we're gonna have a pretty positive, huge amount of ending balance, $77 million. Right? That's a very good, I think that a lot of people were saying, well, why do we need that as a reserve? Because we need to do our building station, other things and everything else. It's much better to have a really safe reserve than no reserve. And we know a lot of cities and type of thing, organization are struggling on that. So I'm glad, I think we should all will keep in mind that is our philosophy, enough reserve for our future. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Bothwell or comments on the 2026 budget? Mr. Bothwell, I do have I guess a comment for you, and that is that I do like the 10-year budget with working in some of the practical things that the board will end up doing to maintain, be able to maintain services in terms of the levy lid lifts and other ways that revenue will be generated in order to keep funding the expenditures. In the past, we have had, and the base budget, as you described, hasn't always had that. And so it generally points to very negative outcomes going forward. And what I've found over my years on the board is, yes, because inflation is going up so much and the 1%, but the board is allowed to increase taxes each year as a limiting factor. It's always going to be in the red because inflation on all the various things, everything we buy, healthcare, et cetera, is always higher than 1%, and now is a lot higher than 1%. And so it just makes for a lot of red ink into out years, and we can't run South County Fire into the red in the future. We are not allowed to deficit spend. We do have to balance the budget. And so as a practical matter, that is how we do it over time. And so having some reflection of that over a 10-year period of time makes sense because either we're going to raise taxes or we're going to cut services, but one way or another, the budget's going to get balanced in each of those years. And it's not going to be, I know you indicated like $85 million short in, like 2035. It won't be, it'll end up being balanced, but it'll, we'll make it happen. And to have that reflected in some capacity, I think is more realistic for how things will be, as opposed to particularly detractors that may look at it and go, wow, you're going into the red, you're going to go away because you have no money. That's not the case. We'll fix it year by year to make sure that we maintain the organization. So anyways, I just wanted to comment that I did like having that on the 10-year schedule. I did have a question for you, and I didn't know if on the back side of your handout from today regarding the dates, were we going to be talking about this in the capital facilities plan portion, talking about?
Yeah,
those?
that graphic was created for that purpose. I just stole it and put it on
Okay.
my slide too.
All right, well, I'll save my question on that then for that discussion. I did have something separate though on the 2026 budget. Can you give me any update on the 2025 GEMT or any information about possible 2026 GEMT?
Nothing new, but full disclosure, I've not dug into it yet. So I'll do that tomorrow and I'll send out an update. I haven't done any work on it, but I've not seen anything since our last conversation, but I've not seen anything from them yet. So.
I take it that means that no check has come in on the 2025
Right.
GEMT.
We'll get they'll let us know what the amount's going to be probably a week or two before we actually get it. And I do expect to see that any day.
Commissioner Kennedy, the one thing when we were referenced GMT for 26, it's just from a timing perspective, it's important to know that the 26 fiscal year for GMT ended in June 30th of this year. So and because we do everything once we settle agreement, the funding for GMT has already been allocated for 26. And the SPA conversation that we had is nothing's changed with that. There's still the state plan we have that governs how we calculate our cost reporting, all that has not changed. And the fiscal year for GMT starts July 1st of year A, and then goes through June 30th of the following year, which is in line with the fiscal year requirement for that. So as we move forward in 26, I would suspect that 26 will be very consistent with what we saw in 25. And again, they're doing 100% audit, so the timing's probably going to be the same because it takes MA staffer who they're having do the audit, and they're doing 100% audit on all the GMT cost reports. And so I would expect, the days of getting the GMT settlement reimbursement in April probably aren't here anymore. We're probably looking at October being more routine. And then as you look forward into 27, again, the first half of fiscal year, again, we'll be talking about fiscal year 27 was already here. And then we're looking at what potential impacts are from now forward through the end of this fiscal year. So I don't know if I've ever actually had that conversation with the board to know, because we end up getting the dollars about, in this case, 8 to 9 months after the end of the fiscal year. So it's just to give you context of how we're actually doing it and where the federal dollars are coming from, the partnership with the federal dollars are coming from, reference to the way it's calculated and the time frame it's calculated on.
Well, Chief, and I appreciate that, and I knew that it was all based on it came in slowly, that the timing was based on stuff that it's already occurred, and in any prior federal administration, I would rest on the fact that detrimental reliance in the nature of contract, that under that reimbursement architecture, that if it had already happened, that we would be paid out. But under the current federal administration, I'm not so sure that, we may have relied on it. We may have earned it. Contractually, we may be entitled to it. That doesn't mean the administration is going to pay it. And what feeds into part of that is We don't have the 2025 money yet, which is based on even further back in time. So that's why I'm just trying to read the tea leaves on, you know, I'm going to say when we get that money. But it's a significant dollar amount. And so that's my concern. And so that's why I ask about it.
Nope, and that's fair. I think, but I don't know if I've ever had that conversation with the board when it comes to GMT, to let you know in what time frame we're talking, because it is delayed. And so I would suspect that if there's going to, and this is me talking, if there's going to be a negative impact based on what's happening in Washington DC, we're going to see it in the 27 reimbursement. Now, again, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I do think if we're going to see the challenge, it will be in what happens in 27, because $26 and all that is previous. So more to come. Like I said, I know Chris is on it, and we'll let the board know in between meetings that we've actually know it's coming or received the check. So thanks.
Sounds good. Other questions for Mr. Bothwell or budget discussion comments? No? Okay, well, we'll have 2026 budget back on the next agenda. Great, thank you, Mr. Bothwell. All right, that moves us forward on the agenda then to item 10B, which is capital facilities plan with Chief Eastman.
So I think I'd like to just start with the timeline that's in the timeline graphic that Commissioner Kenny referred to. It's in your packet, and I believe there's a copy that you all got on the back of the 10-year forecast. And I'll quick explain the timeline, because in the concept of what we're talking about with regards to facilities plan is, you know, we've had a brief about the bond and understanding the bond and how that works. We had a brief at the last meeting from Brian Harris with the updated facilities plan with updated numbers, and we did some square footage changes because Mill Creek is now part of the RFA. There's 2 additional stations that are in that, Station 76 and the 4th infill station up at Cascadian. And when we were talking agenda planning, Commissioner Kenny would like to kind of talk about timing and when is the right time, and if this year isn't the right time, then when is the right time? And what we want to do is we've been talking about through the organizational roadmap, kind of for staff's planning purposes, when we're actually going to go and when we think we'd have conversations with the voters. If you remember, during the last budget process and through the organizational roadmap, you know, we targeted, at least from a staff's planning perspective, to be in a position for the board to consider going to debt service in 26. So I think in the timeline of when we were looking at voted issues to go before the citizens we serve, we penciled in capital facilities bond to voters in 26. That was for planning. There's obviously that decision still, you know, board discussion and when we actually do that work. In the same time, in 2028, our current EMS levy expires. And in the conversations we've had through the budget process and through the organizational roadmap, right now it's tentative that we go back to renew our EMS levy in 27. If you remember, when we formed the RFA, we didn't have the EMS levy. We went and did a 10-year EMS levy that's due to expire. Right now, this is slated to be a 10-year levy, a 10-year renewal, because it's a simple majority vote. We have the option to do a permanent levy, but that changes the voter requirement to a 60% plus validation. And then one of the things that we've talked about a lot is for anything that requires validation, which is 40% of the voter turnout from the previous general, and a voted debt or a bond for our capital would require validation. Historically, for the last, and I think Steve Wheeler went back 40 years, I don't think we would get enough voter turnout post-presidential general to validate, which means that 2029 is probably not a good year to go do any vote or any voter initiative that has a validation requirement because 2028 is a presidential election. And then Chris, CFO Bothwell, went and looked at, based on the funding strategy that we've talked about and what he just talked about with your 10-year forecast, that right now, based on what we did in the forecast, we're looking at about 2030 for a potential levy lift on the fire levy. And remember, this shows that we're going to do an EMS levy renewal in 27, that you have and anticipating a potential EMS levy lid lift in 35. And then shortly thereafter, because the benefit charge is good for another 11 years, you got to renew the benefit charge. And then you got levy lid lifts periodically. And then in the scenario we're talking about in 26 or 36, you're looking at renewing the EMS levy, or 37, because you're looking at a 10-year renewal for the EMS levy. So I think we wanted to start with that to show the other things that are out there, where staff has been planning to at least put the board in a position, and I think we're on target before the end of the year for the board to be in a position, if they wanted to go for voted debt in 26, we've done the work needed for a decision point if the board chooses to do that. I think the rest of the conversation is, if 26 isn't the year we want to go do it, then what year is the year we want to go do it? And I think that's kind of where the rest of this dialogue, and I think where the subcommittee for the capital studies planning would like now the conversation to go, if we're not going to move forward in 26, what is the alternative? And have the board have a discussion based on the things that we know we need to go before the voters on, and where would we go, and what does that look like? And so with that, I'll pause and I'll look to Commissioner Kenny or Commissioner Lawrence, who are part of the capital studies subcommittee, and make sure I've addressed that, how we talked about addressing it, and if there's anything they want to add before the board continues the conversation.
Yeah, I just we wanted to have a conversation about the possible timing. And if not 26, then when? And Chief, from your timeline here, I did have a question for you. For 2028, the EMS levy expiration, is that for 2027, is that the EMS levy renewal, so that if it did renew in 2027, there would be nothing in 2028?
That is correct.
But if it failed in 2027, we'd for sure have to go back in 2028 because it expired.
Yeah. And again, and these were in our conversations to go a year before. So if we needed to, we could go do it again, because of that EMS levy is a primary funding source for us. And if you, and again, if we were successful with the EMS levy in 27, obviously it opens up 28 for another conversation. And remember, that's a presidential election. I don't know if that, again, not necessarily good or bad, it just is. The other thing I would add is even years for us, we don't have commissioners running for office. So the even years again, you don't have commissioners running either. Commissioners typically run for on the odd years, not on the even years.
Commissioner Lawrence.
I just say I never run, so. But that was a joke.
Yeah, Commissioner Chin.
I did have something else to add. In 2026, we have different times we could take it to the voters. And we haven't, if we decide 26, it's going to kind of be based on what time, at what part of 2026. Sooner the better, I think.
So I think the special elections for us, it's a really tight timeline to do any education for the February or April. So I think to be realistic, if the decision is to go in 26, you have the primary or the general. Obviously, the sooner we know where we're going, we can start the education process, the better, which opens up the potential of the primary and the general. If we wait later to decide, you end up running against the primary and you're looking at the general, just from a time to educate, and some of the lead time, that I think we're going to want to educate the public on what we want and what we're trying to do.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I don't want to, what I understand from Jim Nelson said that when the bond approved, we can still have about 3 years to use the fund, right? So my question number one is that are we able to, in 2026, we probably have know which capital facility we want to start building and everything, right? We're ready to go.
Yeah, I think when we get there, we will have a really good idea of the timeline. I think Brian Nelson kind of went over, and again, I think it's not a non-aggressive timeline. It's an aggressive timeline to complete what we currently have in the facilities plan. And so we would be in a position, Commissioner Chan, because if we went and we're successful, I'm just going to say the general, which is November. And then I've not gone to issue debt, so I don't know what the lag time is once we get the approval. There's a process, you got to get rated, and the process you go through before
Right.
you issue debt. I'm sure that doesn't happen immediately after. I'm sure there's a time frame that goes. You probably have more experience in that than I, where you're probably looking at funding, second quarter of 27 before you can actually start doing X. And then again, we've got a pretty fine-tuned plan that again is flexible, that things can move, expand and contract as needed. And again, I think one of the things with Jim Nelson's presentation is serial issuance provides a lot of flexibility for us, because the existing operational stations are easy. They're here. We know what they are. Those are pretty easy to plan, march out. Jason's done a lot of work to know which ones we can do at the same time and which ones have to be staggered. Those are easier.
Right.
Some of the challenges with your infill fire stations is it's the capital's one piece. We have to actually staff and hire for people to be in those stations. And so, we have a plan. But again, we're looking 10 years down the road. We need to be flexible in that, and that's going to do that. And then the support facilities are another one that, we got a partnership with City of Linwood for fleet. We just had a meeting with them. And so there's some variables that some of our partners may expand or contract those at the same time.
Yeah, I have a crystal ball at home. My crystal ball doesn't go that far. Okay, based on this few things you told me, number one, usually 2020 is not a good year, right? 2006, Commission run on 2027. I think 2026, I think is probably the best way to go right away, because I really did not know. There's so much confusion about tariff, about all the other stuff. So I think just reducing our risk, I think we should go on 2026, right? And I also, actually, mind I'm talking to you on all this. Now, what happened if right now, I think this will come to 2026. What I've been reading all this about, because the Democrat want to have a subsidy, right, to be passed, right? So what happened if that doesn't pass? And I saw that there's some, in General Federal, they said how many people are under that Obama care thing? And can we even know, I think locally, can we know in our area, how many of them is under that subsidy? Now, we all know that if they do not have the subsidy, they're not going to see the doctor, and they're going to wait until go to emergency room, right? That put a whole burden on us. So I want to be aware of that. I mean, that could be a huge problem to us.
Yeah. So there's a couple things with that. One of them is you've got the enhancement because of COVID for people who were eligible to be on Medicaid.
Right.
I think we can go back to 2019 numbers and kind of extrapolate if that goes away, what comes off, right? So we got the Medicaid component of that. And then you have, I've heard between 11 and 20 million people who actually are on the healthcare exchange and all that, where you'll have an impact of, and again, you know, we may not get exact numbers, but we can work with system design, know who they have insurance with. It's not hard to know exchange plans, we're watching it closely. You know, we all know, that, you know, we become the safety net. We are the safety net. We know that, you know, the underinsured, we tend to see more of when there's more of them in those pieces. That's on our radar. We will continue to monitor and track. And some of it, you guess a little bit because there's a lot of uncertainty in those environments, Commissioner Chan. But we are keeping tabs on it the best we can with the information that we have. And we'll continue to monitor, and if we get better information, we'll let you know. But right now, I think your magic 8 balls right now probably as accurate as we can be, although we know there's going to be impacts if some of that's implemented.
Well, I think you mentioned it, city, in a sense, city can easier managing budget, right? They cut the swimming pool hour, they shut down the park. But we, being a safety net, no matter what we do, we have to go there, right? It's our duty and all that. So that's my biggest concern. We don't have the, you know, we have to get ready to do that. Thank you.
So from the committee, what we wanted to, you know, have you think about was, you know, I would just say, I think we're inching towards 2026, but I feel part of our obligation is to provide you options. So if not 2026, what are some of the other options? And Chief, as I look at the timeline, it looks like potentially besides 2026, 2028 might be good if the 2027 levy passes. And it hasn't failed in the past, so it would make some sense that it could pass in 2027, leaving 2028 as a possibility. It also then looks like 2031 looks good, and 2032 also looks good as possible options. As you identified, one of the things that is challenging for the odd numbered years is that those will be fire commissioner elections, which can put a little more pressure perhaps on making the decision. Not that it can't be done, but it's just can be a little harder. And I didn't know if there were other considerations besides the timeline as we look at those years. Chief, go ahead.
So I guess I'll add 2033 is a post-presidential. So 2033 is out too. The other thing is we know Mukilteo and Everett School District are looking to go in the spring for capital measures in 26. So there are other things to consider.
Well, we should actually follow up on that because at least what I've read, Mukilteo's at 400 million. Edmonds School District, I don't think.
Sorry, it's Everett. My bad. It's Everett School District, not Edmonds.
No, I believe it's Edmonds also. Edmonds,
Oh.
it's not capital for
Okay.
Edmonds, but it's almost $400 million on a levy. Mukilteo is a $400 million capital levy, and I believe Everett also, for some reason, 400 million. And I don't know if that's capital or not capital. But when I've seen all these articles come out for these special elections coming up in 2026 and all around 400 million, when I see that, suddenly our $400 million price tag on this is not looking so extreme because all of the school districts around us are at 400 million. And when I look at what they're getting for their 400 million, I'm like, they're not getting that much, but that's because 400 million doesn't buy what it used to. Unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's crazy how expensive all of these things are. And when I look at this timeline, I mean, I think it's important that the board think about options. If not 2026, then when? As we go too far out, suddenly it's going to probably a different composition of the board making the decision. But the one thing that I think I can say confidently is that you look at each of those out years, our facilities aren't going to be any better in those out years. They're only going to slowly deteriorate. And the cost is only going up. So, it may be $400 million in 2026. Well, add 5% and that's your cost in 2027, and add another 5 on top of that, and that's your 2028 and all of your out years. So it adds up as the years go by and isn't getting any cheaper. And that's the downside to it, is like, when do you pull the trigger? When do you make that decision? What's a good year? But part of this is just thinking about the options on the timeline of some of these years we absolutely can't go, like after the presidential, and then thinking about those levy lid lifts that we've got to maintain. Those are important, and kind of, it narrows down the field of what are the good years. 2026 may be good, 2028 may be good. Those are 2 of the upcoming future years, but the intent is not tonight to decide this, but rather to think about it. And then what I'm hoping is, after we finish the 2026 budget in November, we come back to this either in November or in December to maybe reach a decision point around 2026 and what we want to do, if we want to do something. So, Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, when we make that decision, which is hopefully for 2026, the primary, then we have to spend a lot of work on the education part and how we explain ahead of time so people aren't too much of a sticker shock when they see it in their voters pamphlet. So that'll be a big discussion, a lot of board time on that for sure.
So on that note, Commissioner Lawrence, staff's already working that, right? Because whether you go in 26 or you go in 27, 28, the base conversation based on what we have, I know Christie's looking forward to the new PIO on the 3rd of November. And they start, and through the budget process, hopefully, another person started right after the first of the year. We're getting up where Christie and her team, she's already doing some of the work and thinking through exactly what you're talking about, Commissioner
Working on
Lawrence.
the strategy.
Working on
Very
that
good.
and how we want to do that. And we'll be ready to have a preliminary conversation with the board when the time is right.
Other questions or discussion, thoughts about capital facilities plan and possible years? Yes, Commissioner.
I think to me it's really simple now. We're going to show Station 20, Station 22, Station 23. I mean, those are the, 1960, right? And then even 76. I think just showing that, maybe we should show Rio. That's our fire truck. So I think, because we have talked about this over 10 years already, right? Capital facility plan. I think we need the action, we need the money, we need the bill right now. To me, that's urgent and pretty easy to explain to people.
In the board liaison, Swisher.
I'd like to see us go in 26 too, because I'd like to see us capitalize on the fact that Chief Eastman will still be with us for part of that time, since he has been the person helping to lead the way on this. I don't want to throw Chief Maxwell into the fire like that.
Any other questions, comments on this subject? If not, very good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That takes us forward then in the agenda to item 10C, which is a boardroom safety protocol update with Captain Rudiger. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair Kenny, Commissioners, Chiefs, staff. First off, congratulations, dude. No idea. Well deserved. To the Commissioners and the Chiefs, we had no idea. I work up here, I had no idea that was coming. So been in this job for going on almost 28 years, and for the foresight and to plan and the succession plan and to see that come to fruition in this organization that we are running like the best organization in the state of Washington, if not pushing on the West Coast, to see us aligning and acting like that is very, very encouraging for me as I'm on the tail end of my career. So thank you as a line personnel. It's very encouraging to see. As far as the safety discussion, we just wanted to give you an update. Melissa did have very good point on the concerns of we did not address when you retired to executive session. So are some matters that should be addressed and discussed, and Melissa and I have met with Chris G and IT. And the fact that when everyone adjourns to executive session, we do leave IT personnel and non-sworn personnel can be left in the room with members of the public, and that can create ultimately a safety concern, not just physically, but I think we put political and emotional strain on them in their position that they shouldn't be put into that position. So the short-term resolution that we came up with, and Chair Kenny, you and I and Melissa had a meeting and spoke about some of the options. The best option in speaking with IT and from the Health and Safety Division is that when you do retire to executive session, that IT personnel can retire to their offices, which are right across the way. They are secured with a key card and they can work remote. Melissa can still be in contact with them, updating the screens for any member of the public that are in the room. That alleviates any and all concerns that we would have for their physical or other safeties that we have. To give you a brief update, working with Chief Curtis and the facilities team, they're doing a fantastic job. The door that Chief Isa Taylor just walked out of. For the kitchen, that's going to be updated with a key card as well. So that will be secured during the meetings at all time, so that only we'll have access to get in there. So that, and then the cards will come off the inside room for our day-to-day operations. So you don't get locked in the kitchen like I've done a couple times. The other thing that I would like to address is a couple of times when you retire to executive session, much as we did in the safety protocol, having that designated last person out the door, please ensure that that door is shut and secured on your way out, because ultimately what we talked about in the safety protocol is that door being secured behind a key while you're in there is going to maximize your safety. So that's what we came up with right now. Anything that you guys have questions for me or updates to this for the current safety plan or for executive session, we are more than welcome to entertain and work with you on a solution.
And board members, that was just, the issue was when we're in executive session and what's happening here in the room, particularly if there are individuals that are perhaps waiting for us here to come back out of executive session, and what can they have access to, who's like responsible for monitoring them, and if so, what if there's a problem? And just, we hadn't really thought through that. Hasn't really been an issue, hasn't blown up into a big problem, but you could see it could become a problem. And so just thinking through who's responsible for what was part of what this was going to be, and a brief conversation about that. And I didn't know if Ms. Blankenship, if you had anything to add, because I know you've thought about it a bunch too. No, okay, all right. Any discussion, any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Teofleck.
Will we let the public know that they'll kind of be alone here until we are done with the executive session?
I don't think the board will.
Because we'll kind of just leave them alone. And they'll be like,
Yes, they'll just be left, they will be left alone in
Okay.
the room.
Yeah.
And there will be, when we do go back to executive session, there is a graphic that's up that is updated as to how long the executive session is. So they have that information.
The board liaison special.
One question I had, because I don't remember us talking about it when we were doing our safety protocols. Who's responsible if we have public in the room to get them out of the room? We know where all of us are going. They're sitting back there. What are we doing with them in the event of an actual issue?
That's a great question. When the general public, in most cases, they're going to go out the door they came in. So we're ultimately, that's what we rely on. That's what the human psyche says. When you go into a grocery store, you're most apt, unless you're hyper aware of your situation, like I am when I go into a concert, to note my exits. Most people who are in here in the event of something should happen, they're going to want to exit the door in which they came in. And in the event of what we had already demonstrated, and sorry, I didn't dress up for you tonight, that mostly is going to be directed not at the general public, but at somebody else. In the event that something were to occur in this time while public was in here, it is monitored on video cameras. And again, I'm sure someone will call 911, and SCSO is right across the street at Station 11. So their presence is here. And so I don't think that we need to take any further precautions from our end on directing the public to where we need to go, because generally speaking, the public would not be the target or the ones that would be placed in harm's way.
Commissioner Lawrence.
95% of the time, there's no public left when we go to executive session. So will that door be locked?
We have been told that no, the door cannot be locked, but the IT personnel and the people in the room do have their discretion at that time, if there's no public in here,
Okay.
that they can start doing the necessary things they need to do to start wrapping up the meeting and or continuing conversation with Melissa in case somebody does come in. If they feel that that's what they need to do at that time, they can retire out of here, but we can't have the doors locked
Okay.
during our board sessions as it's a public building.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, that sounds good. Great. Thank you. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item 10D, which is the sick leave policy for the draft sick leave policy, and that is with Chief Eastman.
So I'm better prepared this meeting than last meeting. If you look at the draft proposed policy revision in your packet, if you go to section, sorry, let me pull it up. It's page 127. It's section 511. The edit has been written in red. And really, we've been talking about this for quite a while. What it does is it adds, for those that have completed 20 years of service, upon separation, they would get paid out 35% of their sick leave versus the 25% if they have less, where it's currently written. So we added a longevity step in there. Previously, it was written where any non-represented staff, once they separate, they get bought out at 25% of their sick leave. This aligns it more. This aligns it with the collective bargaining agreements with both 1828 and 1828S. For somebody who has 20 years of service, rather than getting 25% buyout, they go to 35% buyout. And we talked about it at the last meeting. It's if they're maxed at the 1440, they can't have more than that. It's an increase of 140 hours of buyout, so just under a month's work. And I think we've talked about a lot. So if there's questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But staff would like the board to consider adopting the revised policy, and then we can put it into effect.
Questions, comments from the board members? Are we ready for our motion? Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that we approve this policy.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this sick leave policy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Commissioner Kenny, on behalf of the non-represented staff, thank you very much for the action tonight on the policy.
Thank you, Chief. All right, that moves us forward on the agenda then to item 11, new business, and on to 11A, which is fire setting ILA for action with our community outreach manager, Shanari Guzman. Good
Right.
evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for having me. We're asking for action tonight that you would accept an interlocal agreement between South County Fire and Fire District 4, Snohomish Fire District 4, excuse me, to enter into agreement for South County Fire to provide youth fire setting interventions. The reason why this is a good agreement is one, Snow District 4 does not currently have a youth fire setter interventionist. And they also do not have the capacity just with their staffing to have somebody trained up. It's quite a bit of training that needs to happen. We share part of Snohomish School District with Snow 4. And so what happens is when we have these kids in our service in elementary school, I lose track of them once they move on to the high school. And in order to make a really big difference in keeping the youth fire setting at bay, we need to be able to track them and follow them through their journey at school. About 50% of our youth fire setters actually are setting fires in the schools. And so these are kind of IEPs or behavior plans that the schools put in place. And once they leave our first due and they're into the Snohomish Health District, I no longer have any type of ability to continue to follow them. So we would be helping them also increase their WSRB rating, which will help lower insurance costs for their city. And it's just a great partnership for us to engage with smaller cities and help them out since we have the capacity to do that. Likely, we'll also be asking for a similar ILA with the city of Mukilteo. They're in the same boat as Snow 4. We have a great relationship with Everett Fire, and they have their own youth fire setting interventionists. So we wouldn't be looking for that. But we own kind of the entire Edmond School District, and then we share parts of Snohomish, Mukilteo, and Everett school districts. So that's why it's important that we have these partnerships with our smaller cities.
Any questions from the board members? Any general questions? Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
I'm trying reading this. So what is the term?
The youth fire setter interventionist.
Yeah, how long that's going to be?
Oh, we just had a consecutive terms, and so we could cancel at any time if it becomes a burden. Right now, I anticipate only about 5 youth fire setting cases per year for the city of Snohomish, and that would be an average, so it could be more or less. Right now, I'm looking to train up another fire and life safety educator in my division that will help do those interventions as well, so we could take on more if needed.
So how much is our resources being used?
I would say per youth fire setter per month. In the initial intervention, it's up to 3 hours, and then we follow them 3 months, 6 months, and then a year, and then annually after that. And that's just a quick check-in with their caregivers and the school staff to make sure that they haven't set any more fires, or if we need to refer them to other mental health counseling.
So we, both party can terminate at any time.
We could terminate anytime.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other discussion or ask questions? Other general questions? I think we're ready for action. I'll move the adoption of the ILA for youth fire setter intervention referrals with Fire District 4. Is there a second? Commissioner Lawrence. It's been moved and seconded to adopt that ILA. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? If, sorry, Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Well, I think it's great that we can help other districts. And so it doesn't use that much of resources. I think it's a good move.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda then to item 11B, which is legislative update. This is from our last meeting that we ran out of time. So Commissioner Wittes, why don't you kick us off with
Thank you.
This item?
Just a couple issues to bring up that I wanted to bring to the board. Legislative session's coming up within a couple months. It's going to be a short session, so there's probably not going to be much done. But some of the things that I've heard out there and just want to know if the board wanted to support it. Do we want to look at going for more units of service? That ability to do that. Currently, they changed that and we were able to go from 96 to 144. That's for fire agencies, fire authorities, and fire districts that are above a $10 million budget. There's a lot of them like us that we're over $100 million budget. So I don't know how the board feels if we should support that, talk about that. And also, we're one of the few special purpose districts that do not have medical provided by the agency. We can get it, but it has to be self-pay. So those are the two things that have come up that I've heard about, and just wanted to look for the board to see if they want to talk to our lobbyist or look at supporting that or bring that up with individuals at the conference. Thank you.
Comments, thoughts? Well, Commissioner Wittes, I would say I don't know about expanding the units of service beyond where it is, but I think the medical insurance, I think, is interesting. It seems to me, I mean, I don't follow the issue closely, but I have seen reference to city councils getting, or at least some city councils and city council members getting insurance through their cities. And, you know, would that make sense for commissioners on the South County Fire Board to have that through South County Fire? I don't know. It seems like an interesting, but potentially an interesting benefit. There's not a lot that we can do with the reimbursement units of service. You're not going to make a ton of money being a fire commissioner.
Really?
Jeez. But it is but the medical insurance could be a draw potentially to attract people to run. It is good to have people running for election. We have somebody running for a candidate running here tonight, so it's good to have candidates. But you know, in many years we don't have candidates running in positions, or like only one candidate. And so just the idea that is there a little something that could be there that would be a draw? And I think medical insurance could potentially be that draw. So that's intriguing to me as a possibility if fire commissioners were able to be, you know, included under that like umbrella, I guess. Sounds.
Hey, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Fernhoff, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, as somebody actually who buys into the system and pays nearly $1,000 a month for healthcare through our fire department, that would definitely be a benefit. So please sign me up, please.
I'll go ahead and check into both of those, talk to other agencies and see what it looks like. If you go back over the history of it, from what I can gather through the Commission Association and people who've been around a long time, the special purpose districts like water and library districts, they get the medical. We don't, because we're the only group that had volunteer firefighters. That you could be a firefighter and you could be a commissioner. That's the rumors why it was handled differently with fire commissioners.
Commissioner Rowland.
I'll just say that that's an interesting thought, but I know the law is very explicit that commissioners can't get any of the benefits of being a volunteer firefighter, no compensation, things like that. So I don't know if how that all plays in, but it's interesting to know the history of it. I'm in the same situation as Commissioner Fernhoff to make sure that I'm you know, experiencing the same level of treatment that our firefighters are getting. I pay out of pocket for it as well. I do know that I haven't run into any serious issues, so that's helpful. But sometimes you don't know unless you're actually partaking in a program, whether it's whether it works in the real world. So I know at least for an argument for both in the size of the district and the complexity of presiding over it, as well as making sure that commissioners in districts that where they may be trying to cut corners when it comes to the health firefighters, if they're we call it eating your own dog food in my business. If you're doing that, sometimes you understand where the pain points are and you fix them a lot quicker than if you just hear about them anecdotally. So it could be a benefit elsewhere.
Commissioner Wittes, anything else?
No.
As long as we're talking legislative update, though, let me ask the chief, can you talk a little bit about legislative issues from the organization's point of view, like fire marshal issue, or there was one other issue? Just as we start thinking towards 2026 legislative session.
So staff has been meeting with our representatives in the 4 legislative districts that they're part of within the RFA. We met with Ortiz Self today. I think we meet with Strom Peterson, coming up soon. So we've met, I think I think that was number 7, of the 12 or 15. Those meetings are going actually really well. We're trying to have them get to know who we are. The RFA's changed a lot. There's some folks that have been around a long time and still remember us as District 1, District 11. Some who have 1 or 2 stations within their legislative district. I don't think a lot of people know who we are. They know pieces of us. I mean, the Community Resource Paramedic Program is talked about often in Olympia, and some of the innovation we've done. But when we've had the privilege of being able to let them know who we are, the size we are, the services we provide. And as importantly as explaining and having the ability to talk to them about our fire marshal legislation, also letting them know, we're here for them too, right? We provide fire service and EMF services for a lot of the constituents in their legislative districts, some more than others. If we can be of help to them, please reach out and let us know. So those have been going extremely well. I do know that we're getting at least people having a better understanding of our legislation. I know we met with Senator Lovick. I wasn't able to be at that one, but Sean and Chief Sherman were met, and we're working to see if Senator Lovett will do a companion bill in the Senate. We have a conversation coming with Marco Elias here before too long. We'll ask him the same, and see if we can't have the House bill and then have a companion bill in the Senate and kind of run them on both sides. Senator Lovick understood what we were trying to do and was considering being one of the sponsors. So we're doing that work, gearing up for the short session. We did have a meeting with, and I apologize, I'm horrible with the names, the chair of intergovernmental. I think we have a heavy lift still in the House with our legislation. I don't think it's necessarily our legislation. There's some other legislation that's been going on that was in Olympia last session. And I think it's pertinent to give you a little bit of background of it there. One of the challenges that the state of Washington faces is affordable housing. And there was some legislation that allowed for 6-story buildings that don't require an elevator, but they wanted to put an elevator in it so those with disabilities can get to the 6th floor. But the elevator isn't big enough for a gurney to be in. It's one of those that you stand in. So it's one of the smaller ones. And I don't know which group, I think it was the fire chiefs, were adamantly opposed if it didn't have a full elevator in it. And as I was talking to the chair of local government, my response to that was, well, I understand what you're trying to solve. That's one of our problems too, right? Our unsheltered population, we have expended a whole lot of energy and put resource towards, solving some of those issues to the best of our ability, right? Our community resource paramedic program is about routing people to the right place to solve their problem. Part of it's housing, right? And housing isn't getting cheaper. And so if they can take folks that are unsheltered and get them sheltered, that actually benefits us. If you can build the building with no elevator, I have to take those people up and down or the crews do, not me anymore, but the crews have to take the people up and down the stairs if we're taking care of them in a medical emergency. But if you add an elevator for accessibility for those with disabilities, that benefits us too. And 98% of the people we take care of, I can put them in the elevator and stair chair and get them down. And the 2% that can't do that, I'm carrying down the stairs without the elevator too. So I think there's some conversation that we had about legislation that solves some of the other challenges that we face with the people we serve. And I'm not necessarily on the same page with the rest of the fire chiefs, or at least the fire chiefs group, that you get dogmatic about it has to be an elevator with a gurney when we're actually trying to solve a problem. And that creates some of the challenges we have with the local government is one of the comments made to us was, well, if we put you, the fire code officials, you're going to make the safety stuff so hard and so much that it's going to be unaffordable to build. So that's some of the things that we're dealing with in Olympia. It has nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish. It's some of the other challenges that the state of Washington's facing. And those are constituents that are serving the people we represent. And we're seen as a roadblock, i.e. fire service in general, and we get clumped into fire service. So we're learning a little bit about the other things that are going on in Olympia, not just the fire service, red fire engines and medic units, right? And so it's been a great education for staff. I think it's been awesome conversation with our representatives down in Olympia. Whether we're successful with our House bill, if we're fortunate enough to get a companion bill in the Senate, we'll see where that goes. But I think Mr. Foster has been awesome. I think he's been guiding us appropriately. He's been connecting us with the right people. He's doing legwork on the backside with that. And I look forward to the continued presence we have in Olympia. And I think with, Commissioner Wittes, we will have a presence in Washington, D.C. as appropriate. And I'm actually a little bit excited about where that conversation goes. I think it's fun for me to be able to have a conversation with our representatives down in Olympia when they realize that my 7 commissioners, the only people that are elected by more people in Snohomish County than the 7 of you is the county exec, the county sheriff, the treasurer, and the auditor. You represent a lot of people and a lot of taxpayers in Snohomish County. And I think we are stepping up to a role that we've done in the past, but I think we're taking it in a different place. And I think it's not only beneficial for the RFA, but it's beneficial for the people we serve. And the relationships are being built, and I think it'll foster positive results down the road.
Sounds good. And Chief, is that the one piece of potential legislation that,
That's the one.
was there one more? I can't remember.
So I know, I'm sorry. You know what? I get those senior moments, Commissioner Kenny, and I have to rely on folks or go back to notes. I know there's a couple bills. I think there's 2 or 3 other bills that representatives wanted us to put eyes on. Some of them have to do with alternate care. One of the representatives is big in the new site that hopefully gets staffed in Linwood, that Linwood built. They're having a problem staffing it. And our community resource paramedic, how to get funding and some of those. So there's some legislation that it's not out yet, but it's coming that they want us to review. I think some of this housing issues that we've now probably will get asked to look at it and weigh in. Because I think we have maybe a different perspective on getting unsheltered, sheltered, and realizing a little bit bigger picture than just the narrow fire service maybe perspective. And I know that the representative we talked to today has our contact information, and she will use it. And so nothing specific that it comes to mind, but there's some of those alternative the housing issues that they've wanted us to look in, and then some of the legislation that isn't out yet, but it's supposed to come, that will benefit our alternative response program or our CRP program. And then, we still have AJ, one of our captains that goes down there, works on the state council. And I think the other thing with Mr. Foster down there is we will be notified of legislation that we may not be aware of far faster for us to determine, is there something we should be doing with it, is there not? And so I would suspect us to have briefs, at least within our governmental, about legislation that we probably wouldn't have ever had eyes on, with the benefit of having our lobbyists down there and keeping us aware of things that we may not have been aware of before. So I think we're still trying to figure out how to navigate all that too, right? Some of it's new, having the lobbyist down there, and the best part is he's teaching us how to use him too, which is hugely beneficial for us because it's new. So
Great, thank you. Commissioner Rowland.
I know there'd been some challenges, I guess, adapting to and with some of the consequences surrounding changes in medical leave laws. Has there been any conversations with our legislators or with the lobbyists to see if there's any sort of mitigation efforts to address those impacts? Or is that something we're pursuing, or where are we at?
So we haven't had conversation about that yet. Commissioner Rowland, we've typically had about 30 minutes with them. So we haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that yet. And these were usually the first touch. So the majority of the conversation was getting to know each other and who we were. And then a quick blurb about the House bill, and then and giving them the opportunity to say things that you might think we're interested in, or how can we help you? We will start doing that. We just don't have that much time with them to go into, because some of those are much greater conversations, and some of us, I think we have a little bit of homework to do to get our arms around what all that legislation is, get an idea of if we were going to pick one place to go help us resolve it, where would that be? We still have homework to do, I think, on our side to be able to go and start expanding that conversation with our representatives. So we haven't,
Okay.
but I see that being an ongoing, continuing conversation. And as we update our legislative priorities, where does that go? What do we as an organization feel we need to start at least having conversations? Because probably better than I, that you can bring up the topic and it's 2, 3, 4-year endeavors, and sometimes 8-year endeavors to get maybe a final resolve at the end. So it's a long game to play.
Have we noticed, as time has passed since those changes were made, the same trends remaining steady, growing, or are things starting to normalize? Do we have any information around that? I guess my question is, looking at how things are going, is that something that we really should be pursuing, or is that something that we're starting to see something positive?
No, I think we need to have some conversations about it. I think some of the changes we're just starting to, over this last year, we just started having conversations with you and started looking into it. I think it's something we need to talk about. We will continue to look at how it's impacting the RFA. And I don't think we've been looking at it long enough, Commissioner Rowland, to know, is the trend up or is it down? I think we know what the trend is, or what we currently see. I don't know if I can tell you where it's trending. And I think we will continue to do that work. I think staff, I think that's one of the benefits of the roadmap, is we will continue to be looking at that, and we will be able to trend it over time. But I do think if you go back and it wasn't that long ago, we'll talk sick leave specifically. Sick leave was you had to qualify to use it in the state of Washington, right? Employers had the ability to make sure you actually qualified to use it. That has gotten to the place where you can use it for almost anything. So it's no longer the employer saying, because almost everything qualifies anymore. I think one of the biggest issues is the state family leave. And the reality is, and the reason I say that is they've put 200 million into it and it costs 1.2 billion. That program as it currently exists is non-sustainable. And I think we know the dollars aren't going to only come from the state. At some point in time, they're going to come, just like they do with L&I, and say, all right, South County, here's your usage. Here's the multiplier. Here's now what you owe. And it's no longer getting money from the state. They're going to come get our money like they do L&I, and then the state's going to pay. So I do think specifically PFML, or what we call state family leave. There's probably a better name. Sorry, I'm probably using,
No, I understand.
how we talk about it from a staff. I think we do need to look at that, because I think the fiscal impacts are absolutely 100% unsustainable. And I think the first report from the state made that abundantly clear. They put 200 million in it, and I may be wrong with the number exactly. And I think the cost of it, the program, was 1.2 billion. So there are some things. That's the one I think is at the top of the list for me.
Thank you.
Board Liaison Swisher.
I know that we went after this last year and I'm hoping we're going to continue because I think it's probably the long haul. Are we going to continue to fight to get the way the codes are written so that another agency isn't doing the plan reviews and inspections for the buildings that our firefighters are going into? I'm not going to name names of who those other people are. We know who they are, but I I hope that we're going to continue to fight for that because I think it's really important that our people should be the ones signing off on those and making sure that our firefighters are safe.
Sounds good. Yes. Other discussion, other questions on this topic, legislative updates? All right, the 2026 session will be here before you know it, so very good, thank you. That moves us forward then to committee updates. Item number 12, starting with Capital Facilities Plan. Commissioner Lawrence.
Nothing to report.
Sounds good. That takes us to Finance and Human Resources. Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we're gonna move it to, October 30th. Somebody told me there's some conflict. The contract, you had a contract discussion on that day?
Yeah, I think we're working and we'll work with CFO Bothwell. We're still planning on having the meeting that day. We may ask for it to go from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Have it go an hour later, but we're still working on our side. But we'd like to meet that day. We have stuff we want to talk to you about.
Okay, I mean, otherwise, you want to move a day up or something like that, I don't know what our committee members feel. We'll be supporting whatever you guys do. You guys are the boss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is intergovernmental with Commissioner Wittes.
Pretty much covered everything. We haven't met, and we got to have a meeting here soon, but thank you.
Sounds good. And then finally, Snow 911 with Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, good evening. We met on Thursday in person at the Snow 911 facility. ID cards for each one of the board members were issued. They also demonstrated a report. It's a review of the allocation and services to jurisdictions of the public benefit. There's been some discussion about where has the tax money gone to. So they have come up with a product that's currently in draft. It's being circulated. Most likely Chief Eastman has a copy on behalf of South County. If not, we can get him one. Also of note, it was an interesting discussion when I first came on board as a commissioner and we were putting the new radio system into play. Having come from working in rural departments and knowing that VHF is a critical lifeline outside the 700-800 megahertz spectrum, it was a question that I had about what is the future of VHF, and at that time I was told it was dead. Well, apparently there's enough jurisdictions that are asking for its resurrection, so keep that in the conversation. I know that mutual aid resources coming outside of the I-5 corridor will be rolling in on such communications backbone, so it'll be interesting to see which way this goes. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernhoff. That moves us forward then to item 13, which is commissioner comments. I'll just note the WFCA conference starts, the pre-conference starts tomorrow evening, and then conference is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday up at Tulalip. So hope to see some folks there. It'll be good. Always something good to learn at the annual conference. Other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? If not, then we have an executive session for two items. Potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I, and that will be with our general counsel present. And then we have collective bargaining pursuant to RCW 4230-144A, and we also have our council president, separate council present on that, I believe. Yes, yes. And so why don't we take, I don't know, about a 13-minute recess until 10 to 9, and then we'll plan, Chief, should we start, say 40 minutes from 10 to 9 until 9:30? Does that sound about right? And so we'll be in a recess until 10 to 9 and then start with executive session. And we do not plan on taking action at the conclusion of executive session. And so without objection, we'll be in a brief recess back to executive session. Thank you.
The South County Fire regular meeting has been called back to order at 10 PM, and without objection, the meeting has been adjourned.